Hey everyone, I'm Monkey. I write the Wowhead Guide and run the Vengeance channels and the Demon Hunter Discords. I'm here with Frale, who was recently in the Mythic Dungeon Invitational as a Vengeance Demon Hunter. I wanted to ask him some questions about who he is, what he did to prepare for the tournament, and situations with the tournament. We'll also talk about talents, legendaries, trinkets, and strategies within the tournament. So, hey Frale, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Feeling a bit down after the tournament, loss and all that, but I'll get over it in a few days.
Yeah, man, you guys had a good showing. So, I wanted to start out, introduce you to the audience because nobody really knows who you are. You kind of came out of nowhere. I know who you are because I've been talking with you for a couple months, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Who do you raid with? What do you do?
Well, I'm Frale, obviously. I currently raid in security. We're like a top 50 guild in the world currently on a 3-day raiding schedule. I got asked to join Scarbusters after the invitationals now, and I've been in their guild before, so I'm probably going there in this reset. Uh, Fuck me, dude, I don't know what to say besides that.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. All right. So what classes and specs do you play? I know you play Demon Hunter. Are you main spec Havoc or Vengeance, or do you play anything else?
Like, I would say that, like, I obviously play Demon Hunter. I have 4 of them at like max
Wow.
level, 3 Alliance, 1 Horde. It's mainly for PvP purposes, but it was also because I had bad luck with legendaries early on in Lydian. Took me 8 legendaries to get the Havoc ring. Um,
I'm sure a lot of people know that pain.
yeah, indeed. But yeah, like I mainly play Demon Hunter. I'm a bit of a one trick in that sense. I used to play a bit of Brewmaster in early Lydian, but I kind of gave that up.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, so next, you said you meant you played a little bit of Brewmaster. I assume that was in Mythic Plus. So what drew you to Mythic Plus and tanking within it?
but my thoughts are on it. Or what do you say?
I'm sorry?
I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Oh, what drew you to Mythic Plus and specifically tanking in it because you're Havoc main, so you're a DPS main, but you went tank for it. Like what made you decide that you wanted to tank for it and or do Mythic Plus period?
Oh, well, in this early Lydian, I started off as Havoc because I thought it was like a fun spec with the momentum build, and it was actually pretty good in AoE. But then they kind of remade Havoc in a lot of ways so that you could not have a good in-between spec. You either had good single target or good AoE. So then I opted to play Vengeance instead because I saw the potential in all the utility you had as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and I felt like no one was utilizing it. So, and I also got whenever I was doing Mythic Plus boosting for AP and gear, whenever someone else was tanking, I felt like they were always doing a lot of inefficient things and they weren't properly communicating with their group, and which I think is extremely important as a tank and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I basically started tanking, even though this was back when Vengeance was still extremely bad, but I made it work. Um, and then I've just like almost only been doing dungeons as Vengeance throughout the expansion, and I've like figured out like I'm not big of a simmer and like theory crafter. I basically tested stuff and figured out like the best legendary setups, which is and like gear setups and talents and so on, what works, what doesn't work, and
Mhm.
so on. It's like it's a lot like of just brute forcing until you find what's best. I guess that's kind of my way to do it.
No, that's completely fair. That's how a lot of people do that. A lot of people aren't into theory crafting. They just play enough and learn it through playing. So that's totally fair, and a lot. It's very common, even in the higher end. So hey, have you been playing with any other teams within Legion, or have you kind of stayed with the same group since the beginning, or how's that been going for you?
Well, I mean, when I was just like watching the VODs and stuff of us playing, it felt like the casters thought we had practiced like so long together and we had practiced so much. But like as the tournament got announced, it was me and Ada Q. He was playing me mainly Warlock in the tournament, but he was playing Mage on live. Me and him have been doing a lot of stuff together in Legion because we have the same mindset. We're like really serious about the game and we like to like challenge ourselves, right? So we were doing a lot of boosting and stuff, and but the actual team itself, we never had a team to push high keys before. Like maybe we started pushing high keys like a month before the tournament actually got announced. But that was not with any specific group. It was just like I used to have like a tier list of players that I felt, okay, these players are good. So I just take whoever's online basically, and we just went at it if we wanted to do a high key. And then when the invitationals finally got announced, both me and Ada got really hyped up about it, and we were testing out a few different healers and also testing out a few different DPS classes. It was mainly the classes and not the player actually. In the end, we found I poked Donkey Girl because he was somehow playing on the same server as me, and he was the highest Mythic Plus score Alliance warrior in the world, I think, at that point. Because you know, like the Horde versus Alliance, like Horde is a lot better for PvE, which is why every PvE guild in the top is Horde basically. So I found him, I poached him. Well, I like talked to him about it, like asked if he was interested. He wasn't actually sure if he wanted to go for it. So after a week, he gave me a reply, and he said he would join if I got a spot for bad things as well. The Warlock, who also was on the same realm, and is a really good player as well. So we found those two, and then the biggest issue was finding a good healer, like consistent healer that was really quick with everything.
Right.
And we were trying a few different ones. We weren't like really happy with a few healers we tried. We even tried, like, we were like almost 100% set in stone that we wanted a paladin because they are so good. They do a lot of DPS. They have good utility in general, and yeah, I mean, we feel like it's the most well-rounded healer right now, even though they don't have a combat dress. So I found Asmon Ball. That's his retail name, but he wasn't allowed to use it in the tournament because it's a streamer.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Asmongold, the streamer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I poked him about it, and oddly enough, I knew one of his officers. I used to raid with one of his officers, so I could actually get information about him as a player, if he was good or not. So we decided to try with him, and it was like after one run, we knew that this is the guy we want to play with, and then we just went with it. And this was like literally 2 weeks before the tournament qualifying weeks came. We weren't together for long at all, so we just started practicing together and like getting to know each other, how we play the game. And then when the actual qualifier started, we should have pushed a lot more during the fortified week than we did, but like AdaQ, he's in Scrubbusters, the top 5 guild in the world, so he was progressing Kil'jaeden all the time. He raided 7 days a week, so we had very small windows of opportunities to actually practice. So that was a big issue. So we were really afraid at one point that we just wouldn't qualify because Tyrannical Week is a lot harder. And I mean, we did make it in the end, but we were really afraid of basically just ending up in like the 9th or 10th spot instead of the 7th that we did end up on.
Right. Well, that leads me into the next section. So, preparation for the tournament. So, you kind of talked a little bit about it. How did you go about preparing for the tournament? Was there anything special that you guys did, or anything
You
in
mean
particular?
on retail realms, or
Um,
how do you
either
mean?
or, either before the qualifier, like working up to get into the qualifier, and then after you guys got the email saying, "Hey, you guys got the golden ticket. You guys are in the qualifier," and then you got access to the tournament realms. Was there anything special that you guys were doing?
Like in between the waiting for the email, we basically set a break. Like we didn't do anything for almost 2-3 weeks, or how I'm not exactly sure how long it took before we got the mail, but we didn't do anything for 3-4 weeks probably. We were just praying that they would give us like tournament realms, because we knew that we could not like play our live comp and win the tournament. Like we knew that for sure, because we had a mage, and mages are honestly probably one of the worst classes right now in Mythic Plus, because they don't bring anything besides heroism that another class wouldn't bring. You know, it's like a warrior, for example. It's like they bring what the mage does, like heavy AoE DPS, but they used to like twice as much DPS, and they have commanding shout, and they have parry. Like they have a lot of more utility than the mage has. So we knew that from the start. We're not gonna have a mage in turn, like in the tourney. So we just prayed that we would have access to a tournament realm that we could actually practice on. And during the actual qualifiers, I mean, at least all of us were obviously, but we were all farming a lot of AP because we wanted as much trades as possible when the 2 weeks started, and I was trying to get all the gear I wanted from raids, and good enough, my guild knew that we had a real shot at this. So I got like the Moonglaves from Sisters of the Moon, which is a trinket
Mm.
everyone used in the tournament. I made sure that I got a Carapace from the first boss from Goroth, because it's a really good trinket on live. Like, it's not as good in the tournament realm because you have access to every trinket, but on live it's an extremely good trinket. So I made sure I got that. I made sure I got since I'm maining Havoc, I had 63 traits in Havoc really, really early. They had 52 in Vengeance, so I basically had to go on an AP grind and get 60 traits in like a week, just to make sure that I had as much traits as possible
Well,
coming into the 2 qualifiers.
there's some Mythic Plus practice for you, practicing while you're grinding the AP for it.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and yeah, we were just basically trying to, like, every team had to do this during the actual weeks. Like, you just had to try to get very specific dungeons, because like EOA, Court of Stars, Halls of Valor, and like Vault of the Wardens, for example, it's a few of those dungeons that is really forgiving on the time, and they're generally not that bad on Tyrannical. Okay, I guess Halls is bad, but the other dungeons are quite fine on Tyrannical, so you had to target the specific dungeons to be able to get the 23 key done. And during those 2 weeks, we had one single EOA and one single Court of Stars, I think, or something ridiculous like that. So we were in a bit of panic mode because we kept getting like Cathedral and Blackrock Hole and Lower Karazhan and Upper Karazhan, and Upper Karazhan before this patch, like they nerfed it, but it just wasn't in patch notes. But it was basically impossible to do Medivh. It was impossible to do even Curator, just because the ads had like 30-40 million HP instead of 20 million that they had on the tournament, So like you couldn't do the instance. So we just had to like keep de-leveling keys and getting new keys. So we were getting really stressed about that. And then eventually we just prayed that I think we only did 123, that our 23s would just be enough, basically.
Okay, so going through it real quick, you mentioned some people played various classes. Who all switched classes and played something that wasn't their main? Because I know you had double warrior in there, but I don't think you had 2 warriors in your initial comp. So who all switched classes?
Yeah, our initial comp was Vengeance Demon Hunter, Holy Paladin, Mage. He can play all the specs as a mage, Warrior, and Warlock. We think that Warlock is a really underrated class in Mythic Plus because of their insane single target damage, as well as they basically don't need heals, right? It's like, if, for example, on the Lower Karazhan, we had a Warlock, it's Grievous. He doesn't care about Grievous because he's a Warlock, he's out-heals it himself, for example. So we had Adaku, the Mage, he played Warlock, which might come as a bit odd since Bad Things is the main Warlock and one of the best Warlocks in the world, at least on logs and stuff. Like, I don't know. A lot of people know about him. But it's just that Bad Things probably he had played more Warrior than Ada had. So we just decided, okay, Bad Things, you go to Warrior, Ada, you go to Warlock, Donkey, you play Warrior, or if we had some other dungeons, Donkey would have been playing Rogue as well, and he used to main Demon Hunter, so he could also play Demon Hunter if we wanted Havoc for any other dungeon. So it was like, there was almost none of it was me and Asmon mainly that were always going to play our 2 classes, because we are a bit of one-trick ponies, as you call it. We only really play like one class. So that was like the thought process. Like, as soon as we got to the Eternal Realm, okay, we need to test how this comp does versus Double Warrior. And that's basically what we did in every dungeon. We tested a comp we wanted to run, and then we tested it against Double Warrior, and Double Warrior just won out because, I mean, you saw the numbers, right, on the stream.
Right.
They're used to 60 million on every, like, together on every single trash pool.
Yeah. Warriors were definitely, and I think almost every single group ran at least 1 warrior. So they're doing really good right now. So that's kind of good that you guys had 2. Okay, so next question. So how many hours a day or dungeons a day would you say that you did before qualifying, and then afterwards once you actually got onto the tournament realm?
Before, do you mean before the actual qualifiers were announced? Or do you
Well,
mean during
let's
those
say
2 weeks?
like while you guys were practicing, like after it was announced and you were like, "Hey, we want to do this. Let's go do this." Like, how much were you guys practicing to even get the spot in the qualifiers?
Well, we were, as I said earlier, I was touching on it a bit. Like, me and Ada were basically trying to find the with players that had enough time and were good enough and consistent enough to do this and with the right mindset. That took a while, and then we had like maybe a few days of practice before those 2 weeks actually came up. But as I said, all of us were progressing on. I think we were in Avatar. Ada was on Kil'jaeden. So we were all raiding a lot. So we had to play either super late night or really early. So I would say on average we were practicing maybe 6 hours a day, roughly. We had a lot of downtime though, because we had a bit of an issue with some attitude problems and some minor stuff, some wrong prioritizing, but it's not that relevant. But we were practicing a lot. We wanted to practice probably a lot more though, and generally try to push kids a lot more during the Fortified weeks, which I touched on earlier as well. Just because Fortified is just that much like safer, because there's no random one-shots like it is on Tyrannical. Because when you get up to this plus 23 kills in certain dungeons, basically everyone has to use Stamina Flask. They have to use Pridas. They even have to put on like the Royal Dagger Haft from Scorpion. I think it's from Scorpion or from Anomaly. Just to live specific abilities. It's like the timer is not the problem. It's actually just living the one-shot mechanics. So we were having some like. There was a lot of negative thoughts about us not qualifying after the Fortified week, because we felt like we should have had 2 more 23 keys done in that week, but we were extremely unlucky with keys. And then we came into the Tyrannical week and we still managed to do a bunch of Tyrannical keys that was really high, but we kind of had the same issue that week. We were getting really unlucky with keys. We kept getting upper and lower Karazhan, and they just were basically impossible to do on plus 23. Like, there was no way anyone could do it. Not even if you had like the actual perfect setup, you still wouldn't be able to do it. Just because of how the bosses interacted with Tyrannical.
Right.
So we practiced a lot. Like, it sounds a lot to other people, but for us it didn't feel like we practiced a lot. You know, it's like it's just how you put it into perspective, basically.
Yeah, when you're already investing so much time into raiding, as you said, you guys were working on, or they were working on Kil'jaeden, you were on Avatar, and I know you got your Kil'jaeden you mentioned a couple weeks ago. So you guys were already raiding at that level and already doing dungeons basically at that level anyway, so it was just kind of something gave you more of a reason to do the dungeons, I guess you could say.
How do you mean? Since we were almost done with progress, or
Oh, I meant like because you'd spent the entire expansion farming AP and dungeons and all that kind of stuff, you know, to be at the top of your game for raiding, that and for your carries and whatnot. So the extra dungeons didn't feel like that much more, I guess.
No, because we were still getting gear. Like, for example, on live I have a 940 Heart of Darkness, which I actually got during the qualifying weeks when we were just grinding up keys, which probably made me live a lot on Tyrannical bosses on live when we were doing it, because it's basically a 10% flat damage reduction, for example, and a bunch of stuff like that. So we were still getting gear, still getting AP, so I guess we didn't mind it that much. It just, the difference on live to the tournament realm is that, like, you get this kill, you get the dream kill, right? You get like a 23 quarter stars, which we can do this. So if as long as we don't choke on anything, we will get this kill done and we will get those points for the qualifiers. But on the tournament realm, you can just reset all the time because you have endless kills. And on live, you have this one chance, and if you screw it up, like, you might as well TP out if you have a wipe because you won't make it. So it was really rough when you were on those high kills.
Right, yeah, because they changed the system. Right. So next, what were there any dungeons or affixes that you guys attempted to practice more for the tournament specifically? And this is before and after getting the invitation.
I mean, before the invitation,
you guys were just working on getting qualified, period. You know.
Yeah, pretty much, and we felt like it doesn't matter what you fix it because we know how to deal with all fixes, honestly.
Right.
The only affix we were afraid of was Skittish because of the double warrior Clown Fiesta, you know? Yeah. It's like, there's no way any tank in the game holds aggro against 60 million overall, like, AoE DPS. That was the only affix we were really afraid of. But they ended up not using it at all in the tournament. Like it's literally not there because they said that they wanted a bunch of affixes that interacted with the dungeon, so the viewers could actually see the affixes, right? Which is why there was a lot of explosive, a lot of volcanic, grievous, like basically a bunch of stuff that you can see on the frames or on the ground.
Yeah.
But on the actual tournament realm, we obviously practiced explosive a lot because it was the most common affix, and it is, in my opinion, the hardest affix to speedrun with, because big pulls means that there's more volcanics, and if you don't kill them, you wipe. Like, that's how that works, right? It takes, I think it's 25% of your HP, maybe even more, for each explosive.
Yep.
So if you don't kill them fast enough,
more orbs.
Yeah. So it's the same with like on bosses, right? Like if like Morose, we didn't get to play lower on teaming, but I mean on explosive, but you had to do a lot of line of sighting on Morose, because even though that you see an ad, that ad is still spawning explosives up the stairs, which is out of line of sight unless you run up there and stuff like that. So we definitely practiced explosive the most, but we also spent a lot of time in Moss Souls. We didn't practice the Sanguine Quaking specifically. We just wanted to practice Moss Souls because, in my opinion, that is the dungeon with the least room for failure, because the timer is so tight and it's so unforgiving to wipe in that instance. Because the boss, especially like on Helia, if you wipe, it takes so long. It's the same on if you fail the boat pull, like like taking the whole boat. If you fail that, then the mobs aren't stackable again because they run out. When you kill Harboron, they all run out to set positions. But you can, like, if you sky step or leap there like we did, you can catch them before they get into those positions, so you can stack them. It's like, and it's the same with the Mariner. Like, if one person dies in the Mariner, like if he releases, he's just gonna die again and again and again because the AoE on that ability is extremely wide. And then obviously Imiron, like Sloot was saying a lot, he didn't understand how I was gonna live the dark slashes and stuff like that. So like I feel like that dungeon had the least room for failure, so we were practicing it a lot to get extremely consistent in our pulls and make sure that we always knew how the timers would look especially with the Mariner patrol and the dogs inside the boat, because the dogs are really sketchy when there's a Mariner plus Quaking plus Sanguine plus the Grime Lord. Sanguine is actually one of the worst affixes for Moss Souls in that scenario.
Right.
So basically a lot of Moss Souls, that's not for the dungeon. I mean, that's not for the affixes, and we practiced so much explosive because we were trying to figure out, okay, which class is the best to just spam kill explosives all the time, and how do we spam kill explosives, and how do we pull to not die to the explosives when we're pulling. And that's why we ended up using Skystep Potions so much, which I don't think we saw at all in either the Chinese qualifiers or in the Oceanic, or I'm not even sure we saw it in the NA. But Skystep Potions is something a lot of people overlooked. And if you don't use Skystep Potions on explosive, you're not gonna do well. That's how it works basically with explosive.
That's good. So Moss Souls, explosives, important stuff. So, all right, that's cool. Okay, and then the final question before we actually go into the tournament. Where did Wheezing Harsies come from? It's a very strange, different name. Like, what does it mean? Who thought of it? Like, what is it?
I guess it's like a combination of two different like internal memes, like I guess you could call it.
Okay.
The wheezing is just like when I laugh, it sounds like I'm wheezing, sort of. It's really hard to explain, but that's how it is. It started in my guild. They told me to stop wheezing all the time, and everyone thought it sounded really funny. And then when we were qualifying for the tournament, Donkey Girl did a really like big misplay, which we laughed about. Like, it was nothing serious, and then I made like a paint picture about it, like one of those really like basic paint things, and I basically just Googled retarded donkey, right? And it came up with a horse, and that horse was like spelled horsey. So we just said, yeah, okay, wheezing horses, let's go with it. It's funny. No one will get it, but we think it's funny. I can show that paint picture later if you want to add it for anything, but
Yeah, if you want to send it to me, that's fine. Well, I'll see if I'll see about adding it in. I'm sure
Yeah,
Tank Chat will love this whole bit because they loved Donkey, especially when he went Prot Warrior. But we can talk about that later.
yeah. But
So
yeah, it was just basically two internal memes mixed together. Like it wasn't, they didn't really mean anything.
okay, cool. Yeah, I was honestly really curious about that. It was just kind of a very random team name. It didn't feel like there was any real meaning to it, and so it's just funny. All right, cool. So the tournament itself. So we're gonna go over how it was, all four dungeon runs that you were in, and so we'll start from the first one. So when you're facing one heal from Future, so you start out with Moss Souls. It was Sanguine, Quaking, and Tyrannical. So first off, tell me what legendaries, talents, trinkets did you run? What did you swap in and swap out for each boss or each pull or whatever? Just tell me about it. What did you use?
So most of this is a pretty short instance, right? So I can go over all the pulls because we basically made the whole instance in 3 pulls
Mhm.
or 4, I guess. I was running like the pretty much standard build, I suppose, for Dungeons, Abyssal Strike, Fallout, Flame Crash, Fracture, Citadel of Chains, Spirit Bomb. The only difference in from live to the tournament realm is that I was running Last Resort on the tournament realm because there's a lot of nerves, there's a lot of like chance of screwing up. So I decided to go with Last Resort, even though I think it's not as good as Soul Barrier in most Souls, because Soul Barrier is the talent to go for the first boss
Mhm.
and the last boss for the tentacles, because those tentacles destroy every tank class if you don't have a big CD.
Mhm.
So the first pull, it's really basic. Every pretty much every team did it. We imprison the mob. And since imprison doesn't aggro on anything besides pet, as long as everyone is on their mount, you just run past it. Uh, One thing that I'm not sure if other people did this, but you always aggro at least one bird as you run past the little bridge. And we were trying to figure out how do we deal with this bird because it spawns sanguine, right? So we had a lot of issues with this bird healing all the mob packs because they started casting, and pretty much all those mobs in the very first pull they cast a bunch of crap that cannot interrupt. And if I use Citadel of Chains on that pack, I slow them by 70%, which means that they would move even slower out of Sanguine, so I couldn't use my Sigil there. So we decided to, I place a grip Sigil before the bird lands, then the bird gets gripped, and then we hold shit when the grip Sigil ends, and then we just, I'm running double AoE trinkets on this pull because there's no really hard hitting mobs, there's no Swift Blades with the Shadow Strike that one-shots people. It's just a bunch of frontal cones and casting mobs, and since I'm a Vengeance Demon Hunter, I press my Citadel of, what's the name of them? Citadel of Silence, and they just don't do anything, right? And then obviously we have 5 Blood Elves as well, since we're a Horde. So the first pull was like, it was just about making sure we kept the mobs outside of the Sanguine. I was running Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish and Moonglaves together with the leggings. It really doesn't matter on a pull like that, like which second legendary you use. Like the legs, like I didn't even use 3 demon spike charges probably. Like I just took whatever had the best stats, and like
Mhm.
I feel like the legs are really good baseline in Mythic Plus, because in Mythic Plus you want more uptime on your active mitigation rather than, for example, the Archimon the Satyr Reborn. Sure, it's a big absorb, but that doesn't matter if you wipe the group because a certain tank mechanic deals damage to the group or something like that, or it leaves a debuff on you because you don't have active mitigation.
Okay.
And then yeah, we proceed to the boss. And in the tourney and usually during practice, we kill the trash so fast that the boss mobs actually hasn't despawned, so we have to wait. But that's fine because we're like the CDs are recharging from the warriors. Uh, I really can drink. I swap to cloak, and I still use the legs. So I make sure that I always double check is did my cloak get equipped here? Then we basically pull the boss, and when the warrior cities are about to come up, we pop Bloodlust because the next time we use Bloodlust is going to be at the last boss, so we don't really need to use it instantly on pull. So yeah, we wait for the warrior cities. Every time there's Dark Slash, I make sure that I have either Firebrand up or that I have empowered wards plus the cloak. Basically, when you use Simulation Aura, right, you get a 15% magic damage reduction. So I made sure that I either had Firebrand or Immolation Aura plus empowered wards up. and I tried to always make sure as well that I had 5 Painbringer stacks, which is something, I think that's the hardest thing to manage as a Demon Hunter, the Painbringer stacks. I don't think a lot of people actually even think about Painbringer in that sense, but a 15% reduction on such a hard-hitting ability is extremely important. So yeah, like there was nothing really specific about the boss. My CD usage was that when the first ad spawns, I use Metamorphosis, and we make sure that there's maybe only 2 to 3 ads alive when my Metamorphosis ends, because those ads, they get a stacking buff. The longer they're up, the more damage you deal. And obviously, if they get me to like 4 to 5 million HP and a Dark Slash comes, even if I have a lot of magic damage reduction, I am going to proc Last Resort. And Last Resort was, well, we wanted it ready for the boat pool, right? Because there's a chance I just get one shot otherwise. I did not end up proccing in the start of the pool in the run we did, but I still wanted the Last Resort to be there. So I just made sure that I used Metamorphosis on the first set of ads. All of them except 3 of them dies, because we wanted the warriors to execute cleave, right? So we left like 3 ads at quite low HP, so the warriors can execute cleave from the ads, which increases their damage a lot. And then on the second set of ads, I make sure I have pretty much all my Demon Spike charges ready. I make sure that I have Firebrand, and I get a sack from our healer as well. And then the boss usually died shortly after that spawn, depending on how our DPS was looking. We go into the boat after that.
Real quick, so what all
Yeah,
did
sure.
you, as far as Dark Slash, how did you plan that out for the boss?
But
Because that was the main thing. Because even Sloop mentioned it, and Trekkie, they were talking about how VDH is bad against Dark Slash. How did you go about planning that?
but that's what I explained. Like, I made sure I had either Firebrand or that I had Immolation or a Cloak. I mean, the Magic Reduction Cloak, right? Plus Empowered Wards ready, because I was playing with Legs and Cloak. And I also made sure that I had, no matter how many CDs I had up, I made sure I always had 5 stacks of Painbringer up.
Okay.
And it was just basically, it felt really safe. The only time it was sketchy is if the ads didn't die quickly enough, or if I screwed up a cooldown rotation. You could argue that I should have played the boots on that fight, but the thing is, the ads usually died so fast that I would probably only get 1 Immolation or in to reset the Firebrand CD, so I felt like the Cloak would, or the Legs would do better than the boots, basically.
Okay.
And I also had a very low haste. I was stacking Versatility and Mastery only. I had almost no haste and no crit, so the Legs felt like almost like a must-have on every single boss and every single trash pull because of that. Because haste obviously affects the CD on a bunch of our abilities, especially Demon Spikes and Immolation Aura. So yeah, that's basically how I planned that boss. It's just about timing things correctly and making sure you don't overlap and making sure you always have something. And if I don't have something, I make sure that I tell my healer, okay, I don't have anything, you need to sack me. Even if we don't usually sack you need to do it. Or I have to make sure that we use a warrior shout, because we have 2 warriors, so we have 2 shouts.
Right.
And likewise, like you said, that's what I said earlier, like I touched a bit on, like, it's extremely important that a tank communicates. A tank that doesn't communicate should not be a tank player.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah. The only thing worth mentioning is that I made sure to always run out when the dog. We basically shockwave the dogs, and then I run out because they leap on the furthest player away. So I soaked all of the leaps. But that's the only really like special thing we did, I suppose, down there.
Okay.
But yeah, if we skip up to Harboron and the boat, since we all needed the massive AoE trinkets for the boat pool, we had to play. Both the warriors had to play Shivermoss, Jawbone, the trinket from Violet Hold. If people don't know which one it is, you have to look it up yourself. But yeah, they had to play that on the boss because they needed it to be ready on the boat pool, as well as glaives. So we knew the boss was going to take a bit longer for us than for other teams, because we had to run the triple Jawbone and triple glaives, because I was using it as well.
Yep.
Because we needed it for that boat pool. And then after the boat pool, it was basically Sky step down there, get there as fast as possible, and then I had to make sure I pressed all my globals correct. I had to, like, Immolation Aura into Blanket Silence, into Grip Sigil, into pressing my Jawbone and AoE trinkets into Metamorphosis. If I didn't do that fast enough, I basically just died, because there's so many mobs, and there's 6 Shadow Slashing mobs, which hits extremely hard and it's magic damage.
Okay.
But there's almost not much about it. It just looks really complicated, but it's not much about it. We're playing Double Warrior. They do 60 million DPS, split between
Right.
them. We had a bit of a screw up because Donkey forgot to equip his AoE trinkets before Harbaron, so he did half the damage of bad things, which did make the pull take probably almost a minute longer than it should have, but it didn't end up mattering.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys ended up winning that. I believe it was by over a minute too.
Yeah, we got the best time so far in the whole like
Yeah, you
in all
did.
the regions,
That's
I
right.
believe.
Yeah, you got the best time by something like a minute. I believe they were talking about that. I think Sneaky Snakes was the closest one to you guys, and they were a minute behind you.
Yeah.
So,
And I just want to point out that we didn't even have a perfect run, because if Donkey didn't screw up his trinket swapping, we would have done it in roughly 14 minutes and 15 seconds instead, around there. That was like the best time we had during practice, with 3 chested at 17 basically.
nice. As far as the whole Maw of Souls, did you think? Well, I guess that kind of leads into the next question of what do you think you guys could have improved on? So basically, Donkey actually equipping his trinkets that he should have. Was there anything else you guys felt like you could have done better?
I mean, Horrorborn in general is a really annoying boss for melee, so we could probably have tried to like just generally execute the boss better, but I mean, there wasn't much improvement needed. Like, I mean, we got the best timing of all the teams after all, so I guess there wasn't that much room for improvement, really.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, yeah, I forgot to mention which legendaries I was using on the boat, but I was using the shoulders because then I can use double blanket silence for all those casting mobs.
Hmm.
I can also double grip and double fear to interrupt casts, and I was using the legs just for the extra empowered wards because there's 6 mobs that does this high magic damage in that pool.
Right. Yeah, and then the jawbones and the glaive. So
Yeah.
okay. All right. So then going on to the next dungeon, Neltharian's Lair. So this was their pick, and it was teeming, volcanic, and tyrannical. So kind of tell me about again like legendaries, talents, and trinkets you ran. Anything specific, and then we can talk about the skip that you guys did that kind of confused everybody because nobody assumed that everybody assumed you guys were Horde going into it. So go ahead and tell me about any legendaries, talents, trinkets, etc. that you guys went through.
For me, I'm not sure about my team, but for myself, I didn't change any talents. I basically ran the same gear sets because like I had already finalized my gear sets a long time ago.
Mm.
So we basically did what we did in Most, right? We did this extremely big pulls because we had double warrior, and we felt like, well, we didn't really understand why Nagura's team would ever pick like Neltharion Lair is basically the best map they could have picked for us because it allows double warrior to destroy everything.
Right.
If you compare it to the other instances, like I don't even know, Court of Stars, Vaulted Wardens, and Thicket, like those instances, sure they have some big pulls, but compared to Neltharians, it's not even close. Like Neltharians, we did the instance in like 4 pulls or something, just because of double warrior. So we
Right.
didn't understand that, but we were really happy about it. And then it's a bit of a funny thing because we tell the admins, yeah, we're playing the same comp, but we're logging Alliance, and the admins, I don't even think they had Alliance characters.
Nice.
Because no one had played Alliance, you know. So it was a bit funny. We were laughing about it and having some memes about it. But yeah, we pull everything up to the first boss. I'm playing shoulders and legs there as well, with the jawbone and with the glaives.
Hmm.
I wanted the shoulders mainly because I wanted double grip to interrupt the piercing shards, so the warriors wouldn't have to use global cooldowns on shockwave because that's a major DPS loss for them. So I made sure that I could double grip the piercing shards and double fear the piercing shards. And yeah, as soon as like the majority mobs die, we send Asmon Ball or Brazen Knight down to start the role playing. And Ada's job was basically there's 2 worms in that pool that go under the ground and they don't really get AoE'd. So his job was basically just stand and single target those mobs while the warriors are deleting the instance. Yeah, we get to the boss. There's nothing very specific here. It's a pretty simple boss. You just have to make sure that the skitters aren't like full HP or that you have a bunch of them up as the shatter goes off because the shatter deals damage equal to it gets increased damage equal to the amount of skitterers you have up. So I made a legendary swap. I swapped into the boots because there's always a bunch of ads up, so it's a pretty big DPS increase because I have will because I have 70% increased fire damage doing Firebrand, because I have access to triple Beast Relic. Yeah, well, we kill the boss. There's nothing honestly specific about the boss. I don't think there's much questions there. Yeah, we go down in the barrels, I guess, and we pretty much know what we're pulling. We're pulling everything there that isn't like out of way for us, and then we pull them into this little corridor that I don't think we saw other teams doing. Yeah, but I don't think we saw other people doing that. We basically put it in there because then the pelter would stack up and we wouldn't have to bother with it leaping away and stuff. So we had Ada, once again, you single target the pelter, you kill that pelter, we will destroy this trash here. Because our paladin was running Jawbone with glaives as well. Like we had quadruple Jawbone with glaives on most big pulls.
Nice.
So yeah, we killed it off. We make sure that we don't let the drummers summon ads. So I imprison the first one, and then then Brazen Knight breaks it immediately because I was running ahead with a Skystep potion. And yeah, we're using Skystep potion on the first pull as well, obviously. And then same thing on the second drummer. I imprison it. Someone breaks it, so it stacks up, and then after on that pull, I'm not using my shoulders set because I don't need it. I used to use like a regular AoE set with Jaden's Burning Wish and Umbral Moonglaze and the leggings, because the trash really isn't that dangerous for the tank. It's more about the group because of all the avalanches going off. We killed the pack. Nothing specific about it, as I said. Then we get to the pelters where the chat went batshit crazy. Basically, we were night elves. We knew about it. Like, okay, if you fear this pack, no one gets in combat except the actual demon hunter, right? So the pack is teamed. There's 4 pelters. They're spread out, so I have to grip them together and then do the fear. We get past, and there's like a 5-yard radius between the pelter pack and the next pack where you can stand without pulling either pack. So we go there, we wait for the volcanics, move out to them, and I shadow meld. And it skipped basically. We go on, we kill the Hulk and the Shaper alone because we have to reset our cities because we're doing another massive pull after that.
Right.
So yeah, we kill it off. Nothing specific. I equip shoulders, Moonglaves, Jawbone. I blanket silence the first Shaper that is on the left, like at the very entrance of the room. Then there's a patrolling Shaper with a Hulk. So I blanket silence the first one, press Metamorphosis, blanket silence the second one. I make sure that no one else is doing damage because I'm not actually doing damage to them. I'm only blanketing them. Then I run over to the pelter pack. Then you grip them. What a lot of people probably don't know is that if you don't directly target the pelters with melee abilities, they do not leap away. So since the Hulk has double the HP of all the other mobs, the warriors pop all their cities and you spam damage into the Hulk, and the pelters stay there basically.
Right.
So we basically pulled off that pull in 10 seconds compared to Nagura's team, which probably took them 2 minutes or something because they were pulling it like one-on-one, the safe route, you know.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people knew that if you don't attack, if you don't actually melee the pelters, they don't leap. I don't think a lot of people knew that.
Yeah,
So
but
that's good to put out there.
Yeah, we were testing it a lot. I'm not gonna go in depth about it because we were on a limited schedule, but we tested that a lot anyway. And yeah, then we killed the Shaper off because we kind of wanted the warrior cities to reset a bit. We don't want that Shaper because that Shaper will get pulled.
Yep.
If the one of those totems or whatever it is flying around is too close. However, the pelter that also is in the room will not get pulled, assuming that you stand at the correct position. So I used to imprison that mob and make sure that no one goes too close. Yeah, we killed the boss. We were really trying to only two-face the boss, but it just wasn't possible with our setup. Like warriors, sure they do a lot of damage, but they don't do that much damage compared to like a rogue or an affliction warlock, which destroys in comparison to a warrior on that boss. So yeah, it went a bit slow. We wanted it to be faster, but we figured with these crazy trash pulls we would pull ahead anyway. There's no specific legendary usage on the boss. I think I was playing with cloak and legs again because the only like scary tank mechanic is the Sunder, which has an extremely short cast time. It's 0.5 seconds, I think. So unless you knew when it was coming, you probably wouldn't press your magic reduction fast enough. So I kind of wanted to be able to pre-do it, and if I mistimed it, I would still have another charge of Empower Rewards. But yeah, we killed the boss. There's really nothing to it. Next pack, there's a small chance, since it's team, that you pull it, even if you only imprison. So we decided, okay, let's do it safe. I imprison one of the mobs, and then I fear the rest. everyone runs past, I meld, pull the basilisks, and then when I'm about to enter the corridor down to the worm boss, we skystep all the way. At this point, I was on this pull, I was playing shoulders and legs once again with jawbone and the glaives, because the shaper, there's two shapers, or one or two shapers in that pull, so we wanted to make sure that they were blanket silenced the whole time. And you can also grip the grubs that the grub master spawns that turn into big worms. You can grip those to interrupt the cast, so it was really good to have double grip there as well. So yeah, we skated down there. As you saw in the tournament, Donkey died. We aren't honestly that sure how he died, but it didn't really matter since that trash pull, there's not that many high HP mobs, so Bad Things basically deleted it all by himself. On the next boss, the worm, I wouldn't say there's anything really specific. I'm pretty sure I was playing the cloak and legs once again, just because the majority of his damage is a bunch of he's shooting at a lot of poison, which is magic damage. And we made sure that our warlock had the slow ring on. There's a slow ring whenever you put corruption on target, it slows the mobs. So he had that on, so he could solo that, so the warriors could just stand at the boss and just ignore the ads, basically. Yeah, we killed the boss. There's nothing specific. We had Bad Things at 4% at one point, but yeah, it didn't really matter. Then we go on. We skipped the two mobs, and what we did compared to a lot of other teams, it seemed like we killed the Scorpion instead, and the other ones opted to kill the triple Trapper pack. I'm not really sure why. It might have been some percent difference that made the call for other teams, but yeah, we were resetting our. I think Sloot mentioned that on the stream. We were just resetting our CDs on this Scorpion, right? Because the warriors needed all their AoE CDs for our big pull with the boss. So yeah, kill Scorpion. I equip shoulders, jawbone, glaives, and legs, like the standard, basically big pull set, as I would like to put it. I imprisoned one of the trappers because we didn't need that percentage, and it was very inconsistent to stack that, because sometimes I think it's named a trapper. That trapper would basically sometimes stack, not throw the discs, and sometimes it wouldn't. So it was really consistent. So we decided, let's just imprison that, and then when the imprison runs out, you repentance it. So I don't have to move over with the boss, because the boss deals fire damage when he moves to the whole group. So we decided to minimize the fire damage by playing with repentance. So yeah, as everyone saw in the tournament, we had a death on Donkey, which is due to a bug actually, which really tilted us, because the second wall that we were going to use for the big ad, it didn't stun the ad. The ad walked right through it, destroyed it, and it didn't get stunned. So there was nothing we could do about that. So we basically made the call on the spot. Okay, the boss is at 80%, Donkey's dead. It's going to be faster to just reset the boss immediately. Even though we pop Bloodlust and everything, we used to say, okay, reset the boss, go again. Mm-hmm. And that's about it, honestly, for the Dungeon. On the last boss, I was, I would have been playing with shoulders and legs, since we were doing the pull with the boss, but since we had to reset, I swapped to cloak and legs, since the only high dealing damage ability from the boss is an ability that deals more damage, and it doubles its damage if you don't have your demon spikes up, and it deals magic damage. So I just wanted to have as much magic damage mitigation as possible and as much demon spike charges as possible.
Okay, that's pretty smart. I like the thought process there, using stuff that people wouldn't have normally used, especially in the you've mentioned using the cloak a few times, that a lot of people wouldn't have used for Mythic Plus, and a lot of people automatically discount it because it's only used for magic damage. But obviously it's a little bit different for you, having swapping basically every pull, or every few pulls you're swapping legendaries out. So that's good on you for figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I was basically doing what I was doing on live. There's not much else to it. It's just experience.
Right. Yep. Yeah, different stuff, different styles, and you wanted to push a little bit harder. So, okay. And did you have any other comments as far as your matches against One Heal?
I don't think so. I mean, the only comment I would say is that they reseeded the whole bracket because a team forfeited because of some personal problems. Mm-hmm. So because we knew that we were going to beat the previous team, so we were a bit worried that we wouldn't beat Nagura's team. But after that Moss run, we just felt extremely confident.
Right.
Because we destroyed every other team's time in Moss, so we felt really confident, and then they picked Neltharions, and we felt like, okay, they picked the best possible map that we could have gotten. So we were really confident. There wasn't much about it.
Yeah. Well, good. Good. You guys played very well, and it was very enjoyable to watch, and especially seeing the casters' reactions to various things. So it was a good time. So okay, going on into the next round, the semifinals versus Raider.io. So the favorites to win the tournament, and you guys faced them in the second series. And we talked, you and I talked briefly before it, and you even said that you guys weren't afraid of their team, that you felt you could do well, and I think you guys ended up showing that in the end. Even though you lost both rounds, you guys did a good job fighting, and it made a lot of people happy seeing that. And there was a lot of discussions about that, a lot of arguments on both sides after that for a while, which was pretty funny to watch and read in Discord. So it was a good time. But going into it, so starting out, the first one was Upper Kara. So you guys knew ahead of time it was gonna be Upper Kara. I know you guys had a specific strat for it, and I was hyped up. Like, you can ask the guys that were in Discord at the time. I was like, as soon as I saw Upper Kara, I lost my mind. I was really excited to see the strat that you guys ended up doing for Medivh. Granted, it backfired, but we can talk about that here coming up. So Upper Kara, it had bolstering, explosive, and fortified. So go ahead, take it away, and how did you go about it? And
our strategy for that instance is quite complex, but I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible.
Yep.
We basically applied our live strategy, like retail strategy, to what we did on the tournament. The only difference is that on live we were allowed, you could summon people in and out of the dungeon. So basically on live for Medivh, we swapped me in with Havoc, and Donkey Girl went Protection Warrior, and we just every time we did Upper Karazhan on live, we had you have a long quest chain in Karazhan, so you get this ring that you can instantly teleport to Karazhan with. So that's basically what we did, because if you enter Karazhan when the group is at Mana Devour, you get ported to him, because it's a save point there. That's what we did on live. We were not allowed to summon people in and out on the tournament, so we basically had to play with Protection Warrior the whole dungeon, and me and Havoc. The whole plan was basically, okay, we kill Medivh. Our average kill timer during practice on Medivh was 25 seconds. And that's like not with RNG procs from me or anything, that's just how it, because we had so much single target damage. That was the whole plan, like make sure that we kill Medivh in as short of a time as possible, because then if we skip all of the phases, there's no chance of us getting the arcane phase, and if the opponent team gets the arcane phase, we knew that we would have won 100%, no matter which team we were facing. And they actually ended up getting an arcane phase in Meowchen's team, which is why we were so close to beating them, even with the full wipe we had. But yeah, about the trash pulls, like there's nothing specific. They opted to skip all the ghosts in the start. We didn't play rogues, so we couldn't do that. So we killed the ghost. We killed the ghosts. We skystep up the stairs. We killed the next ghost. And then we found out something really good with that mob that does AoE damage around him. If you stand beneath this, like at the side of the stairs, he doesn't have line of sight to use the ability under you, and you can still hit him because you have line of sight on him. So we all just stack there, and we could just ignore that mob's mechanics basically. And then we move on to the arcane mob. There's nothing specific there. We opted to pull it with another pack because we needed our timing to be precise with Curator's Patrol, because we needed to pull him without pulling the other 3 trash packs, because I had to reset my Metamorphosis for Medivh, because there's like almost no trash in between Medivh and Curator. So that was like the hardest for us in during practice. That was the hardest part of the dungeon, to make sure we didn't screw up before Curator and got the correct timing there. So yeah, we pulled the big arcane mob that buffs us one person's damage by 100% for 20 seconds. We pulled it with Mana Worm pack, which is a bit sketchy if you screw up your interrupts. But we pulled it off. We killed the boss in like the time we did on practice, basically. Clear up the trash packs. And yeah, I was playing the Metamorphosis Shoulders. I mean the Delusions of Grandora or whatever the name is, and the Havoc ring that is like always equipped if you play Havoc on Curator. I made sure that I meta'd so that I had a few seconds of meta during evocation, and made sure that I had a few, maybe 30 seconds of Nemesis during evocation, because it had to line up with Medivh, basically. And then we kill off the trash packs. There's nothing specific. On the way to Medivh, we all swap our gear. I equip Horn of Valor because the fight during practice would only take 20 to 30 seconds, so I would have Horn of Valor the whole fight. I swap to Cephus because then I have 100% haste with Metamorphosis, Heroism, and Cephus. The Pyromancer wasn't supposed to be pulled. It TP'd to us for some reason, which it had never done before. I ended up getting the Demon Soul from it though, so it was like a blessing in disguise. But I guess the biggest question is, how did we wipe on Medivh? Well, we basically had like maybe 30 million single target, or maybe not that much, but like 20 million single target split between us, because we had a Prot Warrior reflecting the Arcane Missile, so he was doing like you can't see it on the damage meters because it's bugged, but he was doing about 2.5 million single target because he was reflecting. The Paladin was doing 2 to 3 million. Our Warlock was kind of wheel sharing, like he didn't really do much on the boss, I would say. And then it's me doing between 6 to 8 million damage DPS consistently the whole time we were fighting the boss. And yeah, Warrior does like 2 to 3 million as well, I suppose, during burst. So the plan was to kill the boss before he can get a face, so we can never get unlucky and get the Hurricane face. And what happened is that I leapt in before our tank, and since I'm in Metamorphosis, I can't get targeted by anything because you're immune during the Metamorphosis leap. So he chose a random target, and he took the healer, and he wasn't targeting the healer, so we didn't know that it was on him. So Brazen Knight basically died instantly, and he lost Bloodlust and Wings, so he was doing maybe 300k DPS instead of 2 million DPS. So all our timers were off, and during practice we basically didn't have to deal with any of his major mechanics. So, and there was like a bit of like raging and shouting on voice when that happened. So we all got a bit like tilted, I suppose, and we just didn't move out for Flame Wraith or spread out properly because we weren't used to actually dealing with the mechanic. But yeah, I don't know, we just wipe, go again, kill it normally, and then move on to Mana Devour. There's nothing specific here. We kill the boss. Paladin soaks when he's running on a rat with bubble, and we just kill the boss, and then we do the worms in 2 trash pulls. There's nothing specific here either. Clear up the chess event, kill, and we made sure that we only needed to kill 2 knights, and not more, because we only needed to kill 2 knights in order to get the king to 30%, because if he goes to 30% or lower, he doesn't go into his immune phase. So we made sure that we always nailed that, and I was nuking, I pop all my cities there, we destroyed that, we move on to the last boss. First phase, I think, both our Warrior and our Warlock, they pop their cities and try to face him as fast as possible. In the second phase, I have all my cities ready, so I make sure that I face him before he gets any of those orb debuffs out. That is probably the biggest reason you ever wipe on that boss. So we skip those orbs, and then in the last phase, when he's channeling this cast and doesn't do any abilities, we basically killed him before he could do any abilities, because we have a Warrior executing. I mean, there wasn't a lot of legendary swapping, since I was basically only playing with Cephus and Anger of the Half Giants, or I was playing with the Havoc Shoulders, and I think I was playing Fell Rush Boots on the Mana Worms, just for added AoE damage. But there's not much to say about upper. We felt like we had the best possible strategy. Nothing could beat us if we didn't choke, and sadly we did screw up Medivh. Otherwise, we would have beaten them with probably 2 to 3 minutes. People underestimate how much time we lost, but we lost probably 2 to 3 minutes on that wipe, because we pop all our CDs, we lose 30 seconds because all of us die, and we have to run back and kill it without Bloodlust and without all our CDs. So yeah, that's basically upper Karazhan.
So the reason for you guys going Prot Warrior and Havoc for upper, it was for Medivh. That was the whole reason for it.
Yeah.
Was it primarily for Havoc, Was that the main reason for it, and then the spell reflect kind of to be a side bonus thing, or was it just a combination, or what? What was it? What was the deciding factor to say the tank is gonna go DPS and the DPS is gonna go tank? What was the deciding factor for that?
Um, as I said early on, we did this on live as well, and the reason we started doing it is because Vengeance has a hard time dealing with high consistent magic damage, which is the missiles on that boss.
Right.
So we basically started doing that on live, and then we figured, okay, Havoc Demon Hunter is disgusting with T19 4-piece and access to all the critical chaos relics and all the trinkets.
Right.
So we figured, okay, why don't we just do this? Because Protection Warrior has probably the highest single target damage of all tanks. I don't think people know that, but Protection Warrior has a lot of single target damage, and they're basically immune to magic damage. Plus, they can also play with the healing bracers so that they don't even need heals on them. It's a bit like a Vengeance Demon Hunter. We barely need heals on bosses either. So that opens up the possibility for our Paladin to do a lot more damage.
Right.
So, like, it was mainly the Havoc thing that pushed it, but it was also a combination of things, especially with the missile reflecting on Medivh.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion in Tank Chat, especially after that happened, of people going back and forth of whether it was Havoc or because of the spell reflect, but it kind of worked. The Havoc started it, and then it all just kind of fell into place after that, where everything kind of happened to line up perfectly for it. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, that's good to know. And you mentioned, so really quick, just for people that were questioning, because you had over 5 million DPS on there, which blew everybody's mind that you had sustained that. So you had, going into that poll, you had the 20% buff from the soul. You had
that was not intended.
well,
like
that was not intended, but you
yeah,
still.
yeah.
So you had that. You had Horn of Valor, so the massive agility. Because again, for the people that don't know, all of the gear was scaled up or down to 935. So all trinkets were scaled to 935. As he said, he had tier 19 4-piece, so that was scaled up to 935. And you had all 3 CS relics, I assume.
Yeah.
So you had Horn, and you ran, I believe you said you ran Eye of Command, right?
Yeah, because I had so much haste that I could stack it in like 3 seconds.
Yeah, so you had 100% haste. You had, with Eye of Command, you said you had about 70% crit,
Roughly 70% on critical chaos, on Chaos Strike, and that's the only key you press when you play Chaos Cleave.
Right.
You press one key, literally.
Yeah, so you had 100% haste, you had 70% crit on on the only button you press, and all these damage buffs and all this bonus agility. So that's how you were able to manage that 5 million plus or 8 million burst. So that's.
I would like to mention that I accidentally procced my Cephas on the trash mob we weren't supposed to kill, so my opener would have been 7 to 9 million instead of 5.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's just a funny thing to mention.
And the final dungeon you guys did, Lower Kara. You had mentioned to me before that this was also part of your strategy, was to win upper and lose the second, and then get lower. And so, also Lower Kara, it was Raging, Grievous, and Fortified. So go ahead and tell me about anything special you had going on with Kara. I don't remember seeing anything like mind-blowing or anything special like the first 3 dungeons that you guys did in Lower. Was there anything special you guys had planned for that?
Well, as you mentioned, we planned to win upper, and then we prayed that they wouldn't pick lower second if we won upper. And the thing is, if lower was on the 3rd map, it would have been explosive, teaming, volcanic instead. Which we figured, okay, no one is going to beat our time in this dungeon, because we had done that dungeon in roughly 16 minutes during practice, like with explosive, teaming, fortified, which sounds almost stupid considering how big Lower Karazhan is compared to more like that's basically almost the same timer as More Souls, right? And More Souls is a super small dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
So we that was the whole plan, like win upper, because we knew that we would never lose to anything if we didn't screw up, and then just hope that it didn't pick lower second. I mean, we did practice reaching Grievous fortified in lower, as you saw, like we were really close to them. they just basically won because they had the rogue who could run up to Opera and start it so early, so they skipped that role playing. But that was the whole like mindset. Like, okay, win upper, try win second map. If we don't win, we pick lower, and then we beat them because we were really confident in winning lower on explosive teaming.
So yeah, you guys put up a fight, and you guys kept up with them the whole way. Even and at one point in lower, I believe you guys when it came to around Moros, you guys were actually a little bit behind, and then you ended up catching up around Moros time, or I think it was right after Moros. You guys started to really catch up, and then started to pull ahead. Actually, you guys, because I think at Atumen, you guys had over 96%, and they had around 85.
Yeah, we actually did a mispull. Right when you exit the Morose room, I threw a glaive at one of the patrolling mobs, and it accidentally bounced to a trash pack, a really hard trash pack that has a bunch of things that will wipe you. I mean, we handled it, but it wasn't intended. But I mean, we needed a lot of percentage, so in my opinion, it didn't really matter that we accidentally pulled it. But yeah, that's why we had so much more percentage.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it happens, but whatever. But yeah, no, it was close. It was good. So all right, going on to the end of it. So we've talked about all the dungeons and how everything went. Okay, so for the stats, what did you use gear-wise? Because I know that on the tournament realm, you guys could get specific stats or you could get specific pieces of gear to heavily favor one stat or two stats over the other. So what was your stat priority?
Well, I figured basically that like mastery and versatility is generally the best stats for demon hunters in both dungeons and raids, but especially in dungeons, crit is pretty much irrelevant, and haste is not as relevant as it is in raids because there would be a lot more like downtime between pulls. So you see your demon spike charges and likewise will reset between those pulls. So yeah, I went full versatility and mastery basically for most pulls when my AoE trinkets weren't ready. Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, Shivermaw, Jawbone, and Umbral Moonglaves. In between there, I used double stat sticks because I value, especially versatility. I think is a bit undervalued. On bosses at least, like on trash, mastery wins in my opinion, and on bosses, versatility.
Yep, I agree with that because first buffs weapon damage a bit more, and mastery actually buffs attack power a bit more, at least for us. So it actually does make total sense.
Demon spikes. I consider demon spikes a lot with the mastery because demon spike should get buffed by mastery, right? And on bosses, demon spikes doesn't have as much as an impact. Like let's say I pull 30 mobs, demon spikes is gonna have a lot more impact than if I pull one boss. You know, if that makes sense.
Right.
If you understand my like thought process behind that. So I just figured like, okay, I'd rather use versatility over mastery on bosses because there's not as many mobs hitting me. I'm not gonna spam demon spikes as much because I need demon spikes for specific like boss mechanics.
Okay. And then okay, so stats. So on going on to the trinkets, you said you use glaives, Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, double stat sticks.
With versatility and mastery.
And then with versatility and mastery. And then was there anything else you said that you used?
Yeah, the Jawbone from Violet Hold.
Oh, yep. I knew I was forgetting one. The Jawbone. Yep. Yeah. So mainly those three, and just kind of rotating them out for just when they were off cooldown, I assume, for the most part.
Yeah, it's like I'd like to go a little bit in depth about it. I'll try to keep it short, but basically every time you equip an unused trinket, it has a 30-second cooldown from when you equip it. So for a few specific pulls, you have to basically equip it before you're about to do this massive pull. Otherwise, it won't be ready. So the Jawbone is extremely good because we had it on the tournament realm. It was 935. The stamina on it did not matter. Just that you basically get roughly 10 to 12k versatility from using the trinket if it hits 5 mobs.
Right.
And paired with my passive versatility, which was about basically pending between 7 to 10k rating, If you add another 10k to that, we're talking 17k to 20k, and then you add the concordance proc on that, which ended up at roughly 60% versatility while I was in Metamorphosis. So I was pretty much immune to damage on those pulls, which is why that trinket pulled so far up on my tier list for trinkets. Besides that, like it was like Moonglaves, they obviously do a lot of damage, everyone knows that. Kil'jaeden's has a lot of the... It's not about the on use, but it's 970 because it's a legendary, so it has almost 4k agility, I think. And it has some extra stats, like 1.5k of secondary stats, so it is generally good. Besides that, like I was considering using Heart of Darkness, but since the kills were low, I guess, like they were only plus 17s, the damage intake on bosses / trash was not high enough for me to consider running defensive trinkets, because the pure agility gain from running stat stick trinkets were just outshining the Heart of Darkness, even though the Heart of Darkness was like a flat 9 to 10% damage reduction.
Right, yeah, it did seem like you guys, the tanks for the most part, it was either like very smooth intake to where you weren't really worrying at all, or it was extremely spiky, in which case you would have like cooldowns for it, or you would have some kind of management going for that in any way, so the survivability. And also, for those who don't know, they did not have access to the crafted trinkets, so that was on top of the not needing the survivability. That's another reason why Darkmoon deck was never used, is because they didn't even have access to that or the Alchemist Stone or any other crafted trinkets. And also another thing I wanted to touch note on that a lot of people had questions about was RPPM trinkets. So for those who don't know, RPPM trinkets, if you're swapping out constantly like these guys are, it resets the timer on them. So normally RPPM trinkets are really good in dungeons because the longer it goes without having procced, the better the chance of it proccing soon is. So between like the downtime between trash packs actually increases the chance of it proccing on the next trash pack. Well, if you're constantly swapping, which they are, then the RPPM loses a lot of value because it's got to reset from 0 instead of being stacked up to like a 2 modifier or whatever it ends up being. So that's one of the reasons why, even though the general populace who only uses one set of trinkets, RPPM trinkets are a lot better for them than for this specific scenario. So I just kind of wanted to make a quick note of that because a lot of people have been asking questions about that. And then finally, legendaries. So what were the specific legendaries you went with, specific combos? You don't really have to go too much in depth on what they were because we kind of went over it with going over it with the dungeons themselves. But what did you use? You used about 5 or 6, I believe.
The main legendaries I used was like the legs was in basically every single set, because a lot of dungeon bosses has interactions with tanks having their active mitigation up. Let's say the second boss in Black Rock Hold, if you don't have active mitigation up when she uses her ability, you take 100% increased damage for 30 seconds. Or the last boss in Thorn's Lair, if you don't have active mitigation up, even though it's magic damage, the actual ability, you take double damage from the ability, and you get knocked back if you don't have active mitigation up. So in Mythic Plus, I value the leggings extremely high, almost at like the very top. Like in raids, it's not the same, but in dungeons, I consider the legs to probably be the overall best legendary, only because of that. And besides the legs, it's like I used legs, I used cloak, I used shoulders, I used the boots, Kirel Narla, or whatever the name is. They reduce the city on the Firebrand. It's only niche scenarios because it kind of depends on there being several targets on bosses or heavy fortified weeks. And then obviously Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish for DPS because it has almost 4k agility and a bunch of secondary stats, and the on use is pretty good in general. It's a bit underrated if you compare it to Archimonde's the Archimond legendary. which splits the damage on all the mobs rather than deals the full damage. So I valued Kil'jaeden's way higher. I actually ended up never using Orkimon's Hatred Reborn because I don't think it's a good trinket for Plus. If you compare it, like, sure, it's amazing in raids, but in Mythic Plus, it's not a good trinket because it doesn't give you more active mitigation. It doesn't give you more magic shells, empowered wards. So
yeah, disappears really quickly, and one of the main downfalls of it, even with the absorb, is that it split. As you said, it splits the damage. So if you hit 10 targets, if you blow up for 1,000,000, then they all get 100k damage instead of 1,000,000 apiece. So it reduces it a lot. Otherwise, it would probably be the best AoE DPS legendary as well.
Yeah, because that's also the thing. Firebrand is one of the few abilities that actually buffs Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish damage, because abilities from the class itself, let's see if I play Havoc and I have Kil'jaeden's equipped. Nemesis and Chaos Blades doesn't actually buff the damage, but if there's a debuff on the target that increases their damage taken from something, Kil'jaeden's does get buffed. So from Firebrand, especially on single target, Kil'jaeden's damage is increased by the Firebrand, and on the tournament realm we had access to every relic. So I had 70% increased Firebrand damage, or fire damage from Firebrand, because I could choose my relics. So Kil'jaeden's did a really high amount of damage. So I was using Kil'jaeden's a lot if I didn't need something else.
Okay. Was there any other legendaries you used? Did you mention Cloak, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about Cloak during Most Souls, especially on Umeron.
Right.
And I'm not sure if there was any other boss, but especially Umeron, because there's a lot of magic damage with the Dark Clash.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't mention Prydas. I was running Prydas my standard set on like a normal pull, if we say so, like a very normal pull, even on retail. It's like my legendary setup is Prydas and Legs, because I think they give like the most consistent, like, reduced damage intake and the most damage, if that makes sense. Because something that a lot of people don't think about when they do Mythic Plus is like, okay, I can increase my own damage, but how much is my own damage worth compared to the reduced damage I take? Because if I take lower damage, my healer can do more DPS.
Right.
I think a lot of people tunnel vision on the fact that, okay, I'm gonna take more, I'm gonna do more damage here, or I'm gonna take less damage here, but how can I balance this so that my healer doesn't have to heal me much and do more damage?
Right.
It's actually something I think a lot of people look over too much in Mythic Plus.
So, tell me a bit about first off, what do you think you guys could have done better or you should have done differently, whether it's preparation or anything we didn't talk about in the dungeon specifically? Was there anything you wish you could have done differently, or you're really kicking yourself for now, other than what we've already talked about?
Well, I mean, we all wanted to practice more in general, which I touched on a bit earlier. We had some attitude problems in the team. I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but we had a bit, like, we were actually really close to pulling the plug on the whole tournament because we were getting really annoyed for some specific reasons. So that was really annoying. Obviously, I wish that I think there might have been only a very few dungeons where I would have played Blood DK over Vengeance if I knew how to play Blood DK. So I guess I should have probably tried to practice a bit more on different classes than Demon Hunter. Like, in those 4 maps we played, it didn't matter, but if in future maps it might have mattered. Besides that, I'm not really sure what else you could say that we learned from the prep and the tournament. Like, I'm not sure honestly. Like we learned a few things. Like Sky Step Potion is extremely underrated, because as you saw in Lower Kazakhstan, we were using it on like every pull, just to group the mobs up and get in there really quickly.
Oh yeah, people were spamming Twitch chat asking what the purple orb was.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was that was pretty common. Everybody's like, "What are they doing? How are they moving so fast? What's the purple orb?" So that was kind of funny to see.
Yeah, but that was one of the things, because that potion is actually it used to be, at least when the herb prices on live retail range it was expensive. It was like it's like 5 starlight roses for 1 potion, so it was like really expensive on live. So I don't think anyone actually ever used it on live. So it was pretty cool to see it on the vendor there on the tournament.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we made a lot of use of that, and we're probably gonna start using that on live now, obviously. But yeah, there wasn't really much. Like obviously we learned how to do all the dungeons faster because we were putting a lot more effort into when we had double warrior. Because you can't really compare double warrior to playing mage warlock warrior.
Right.
It's a huge difference. So it wasn't that much. It was mainly just like executing the pulls more efficiently. That's what we practiced mostly.
All right, cool. So, having played in the tournament and qualifying for it and doing all the preparation or attempting to do a lot of preparation and playing within it, how did you feel that? Just briefly give me how did you feel about the tournament itself, how it was run, how the info was, because a lot of people didn't even know like what info was given out as far as like what dungeons you guys told the dungeons ahead of time. Obviously, affixes they released around when China did it, but a lot of people didn't even know that. So, how did you feel like the tournament was run, and how the amount of info that you got prior to the tournament was?
I mean, we basically got when we got the mail that we qualified. They basically said, "Congrats, you qualified. Here's your accounts." Actually, no, they didn't give us accounts, but they said we qualified, and then about 1 or 2 weeks later, like an actual really long time, then we got the accounts, and even later we got like the so-called handbook, like with all the information, like about the affixes, about the schedule, about the brackets. Like, I mean, that didn't really matter too much. The biggest issue was like how they had it on the tournament, because they had basically copy pasted the arena tournament run that was ran like a few weeks before, the EU and the NA regionals. They basically copied that realm into and used it for the Mythic Plus tournament. So when we first got on tournament realms, legendaries were scaling down to 935 instead of being 970. Relic traits were not working because they had PvP settings enabled, and relics do not work in PvP. So they had like a bunch of things that it took a while for them to fix. But I think the biggest issue was that the keystones, you basically bought like a chest, and in that chest there was a keystone with a random dungeon, and the affixes were like rotating every few days. So you basically had to like log in every day and check, okay, which affixes is up now, and then you had to buy 500 keys because you couldn't buy a specific dungeon, so you had to buy 500 keys to get like 10, 15 more souls keys.
Yeah, that's so there.
That
Okay,
yeah.
so then
that was the
different
biggest
then.
issue.
Okay, pretty much. That's all the questions that I had for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss about the tournament or share with the community?
Hmm. I mean, there isn't honestly much about it. I just wish that about the tournament in general, I just think that they should have announced it. Well, I mean, they should have had the qualification period maybe a bit longer after they announced it, because you had to really stress to form a team.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you didn't have a lot of time to form a team if you didn't already have one, for example.
Right.
But about like the actual play, I guess like I kind of wish that I would have been able to play more than one class at the very, very top level.
Right.
And I kind of wish we had more practice, and as I mentioned, we had a little bit of an attitude problem, but I guess it didn't phase us too much but I just wish we didn't have that issue, because I mean we were doing it because we like to compete, and at one point it just wasn't fun because of this attitude problem we had.
Well, that's what matters in the end. You You guys had
Yeah.
fun. You guys did something special, and this is kind of they had they had one other PvE tournament. They did a Mythic Plus, I believe it was a college one that was specifically for like college students or to get some kind of college loan or something like that. And then that was about a year ago in 2016. And so this is kind of the first, and this is still trial and error and testing. And I know Deep Shades posted up a very long and intricate suggestions on Reddit, which I read through, and I agree with a lot of them. And it was actually a lot of them was what I was suggesting too, of different things from a viewer's perspective, also that they could have improved with whether it's the UI or whatever it was for the viewers themselves. Um,
Yeah, like I was only like thinking from my own point of view there, but like they could have almost copied the one they use for arena tournaments,
that's exactly what I said.
so that you can see the people's cooldowns when his bloodlust popped, when his potions used, and all this stuff. And something else, it has nothing really to do with UI, but something that me and especially me and AdaQ feels should be changed is like they should limit combat dresses in Mythic Plus. They should make it so it works in a raid, so it has a shared cooldown, and they should also limit so that you cannot use drums in Mythic Plus. They should make it so that you need to bring this class if you want a bloodlust, because as you saw, we were used class stacking warriors because warriors was the bottom class
Right.
overall, and we thought like, okay, we're gonna play that with warrior, but we still thought it was really boring that we were basically forced into it, because as you saw, Nagura's team had a really good run against us in more souls. Like we actually think they did pretty good, but like you can't compete against double warrior
Right.
in such a small dungeon. Like they should use the nerf combat dresses. They should nerf drums, so that there's more class variety.
Okay.
Because it's the same thing, right? Like every single team is like either playing Blood DK or Guardian Druid just because of that extra combat dress.
Yep. Yep.
It's like Vengeance Demon Hunter is so good, but it gets overshined by this combat dress that the other two tank classes has.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing like a 20-minute dungeon run, then that's potentially 3 combat reses per class that has a combat res.
Yeah,
So if you have a
exactly. So,
tank, if you have a tank, that's minimum an extra 2 combat reses, if not 3. So that can be huge.
yeah, so imagine if they put like a 10-minute shared cooldown on combat dress or likewise for Mythic Plus. I think that would be a lot better for the competitive Mythic Plus community as a whole. Then
I
again,
agree with
people might
that.
disagree, but like people who are playing these heavy combat comps might disagree. But if you really think about it, it would be a lot better, because
Yeah.
then it would really show like like it would really put forward the consistent players, and likewise.
Okay. Cool. Well, if you have nothing else, then I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. So this is gonna be it for this interview with Frale. Thank you for entertaining me and answering some questions. I'm sure the community will be really happy to see this. So this is mainly for you guys, the community. I've been working with Frele for a while, so I already knew a lot of the info as far as legendary trinkets and some of his specific strats. So I kind of knew this, but this was mainly for you guys because I know everybody was kind of getting on him, or kind of questioning him, especially after he lost uh, the other day and he put up a good fight, and then everybody was trying to bug him about it, and then at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, leave him alone for a minute, but it this is mainly for you guys, and it kind of gives him a little bit of breather, but also it lets you introduces you guys to him, and he's gonna stick around Discord a little bit more. We've had some talks about it, and so he'll hang around Discord. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit him up on in the Discord in the Fellhammer, and yeah,
Or more Doom.
or Mardoom. Yep, he's also in the Mardoom Discord. So yeah, if you have any questions, get a hold of him, and that's gonna be it for me.